Before we start the sermon, I want to talk a little bit about my seminary days. When I was in seminary the first year, they give you a test, well, as you begin seminary, and the test is called Language Aptitude Test. And it was a test I failed, kind of on purpose. And so that meant I didn't have to take Greek. Or I didn't have to take Hebrew. They gave us a class called Introduction to Biblical Languages, which was kind of a farce. But anyway, so I didn't do much in Hebrew or Greek, but we have a scholar here with us today who knows more Hebrew than I do. And remember, last week we talked about Isaac and Isaac's name, and what did we say it meant?
Laughter.
God laughs. Okay.
Right.
Steve will tell you even more about that.
Because
You speak up, Stan.
okay, because it's Hebrew onomatopoeia. It is a Hebrew word, most of which don't have the vowels explicit in them, but it is a Hebrew word with 3 vowels because it had the yod to begin it and 2 alephs in it. With the point being, you are supposed to pronounce them all because it's onomatopoeia. Isaac means laughter, and it said Isaac.
The community has got lots of information out there. That's just one example. Yeah. So
My grandson is Isaac. I'll tell him the story.
thank you, Steve, for being on the spot. But he told me this after the service yesterday. I'd never heard it before. Well, today is summer solstice, and it's just a wonderful time of the year. Our part of the earth is getting more sunlight than other parts of other times of the year. So it's just a nice time. There's lots of light in the air, and people for thousands of years have marked the solstice. Stonehenge and other kinds of events and structures were built here in the Southwest. We have a structure in Choctaw Valley called the Stone Dagger, where the light comes through a certain crack that they manipulated and makes a light dagger on the wall. So people have been looking forward to summer. I don't know why, because the days start getting shorter, actually. But, it's a glorious time of the year. It's also the 3rd Sunday in June, which means today is Father's Day, right. It's also Sunday, so that means that we as Christians, we gather to celebrate the resurrection of Jesus, which we heard about in today's epistle. So with all of this light around today, it's also a day that we can talk, I think, about hope. Because I think in some ways hope and light go together. When you're hopeful, you're full of light. When you're not hopeful, things are kind of dark. So let's talk about hope a little bit today. Christian hope. Human hope. Now, I don't know what Matthew was doing when he wrote the gospel. This section of the gospel. He must have had note cards with various sayings on it or something, and he shuffled them and just kind of put them all together in this section of the gospel. It just kind of goes from one thing to another. Sort of related, but not much. So it's this collection of sayings. But one of the things that comes out of that collection of sayings is that God cares for us very much. He cares for us so much that he even counts our hairs down to the number that we have. If you have hair, that is. And it's just an important kinds of things. So I have a joke about hair that I want to tell you. It's kind of fits in. At least I'm going to make it try to fit in because I like the joke. There was this woman, and she was losing her hair. And now I don't know why she was losing her hair. Maybe it was chemo. Maybe it was that allotropic stuff. Alopecia that causes you to lose hair. But anyway, she was losing her hair. And every morning she'd get up and there'd be hair on her pillows. Well, it got down to the point there was only 3 hairs left when she got up one morning. She goes to the mirror and she looks at the mirror and she looks at her hair, and there's the long strands of hair that are still left. And she says, "What can I do with 3 strands of hair?" She says, I'll make a ponytail. And so she braids her ponytail and throws it back, and and then she looks at herself, man, that looks good. And she went out in the day, and everybody complimented her on her new hairstyle and everything. And it was a great day for her. She was a positive beginning, and it was a great day. So the next night she goes to bed, and she unbraids her hair, and of course she wakes up the next morning, and in the sunlight coming in through the window, she sees a strand of hair on the pillow. So she goes to the mirror, she looks at herself in the mirror, and oh God, what can I do with my hair today? There's only 2 strands left. And so she stands there looking at herself, pondering and kind of arranging her hair strands. She says, oh, I'll kind of just throw them back and they'll be like ponytails. So she goes out in the world and she has another good day, There she is with 2 little ponytails and doing the things she likes to do, etc. And of course, night comes, she goes to bed. Of course, the routine. She wakes up, there's only 1 strand of hair left, and she goes to the mirror, she looks, oh, what can I do with 1 strand of hair? And so she just kind of throws it back or something. And, she's okay about it, and the day goes well, and she has a good day, and just happy. So, goes to bed, and of course, the next morning, that last single hair is laying on the pillow. She goes to the mirror, she looks at herself in the mirror, and she says, oh, thank God I don't have to play with my hair today.
That's a positive attitude.
Positive attitude, yes, and that's what it's all about. It's having that positive attitude and being hopeful. And no matter how much hair we have or don't have, we are called to be peacemakers of God. Now we have that little phrase, Jesus, that Matthew throws in his collection of words. If you think I've come to bring peace, you're wrong. So, but everything else in Jesus' life points to the fact that Jesus was a peacemaker. Even in the Beatitudes, blessed are the peacemakers. Everything Jesus does and teaches about talks about being a peacemaker. And we as Christians then, therefore, are called to be peacemakers also. Whether it's within our family or at work or among friends or wherever we find ourselves, we are called to be peacemakers. And as such, we are called to be peacemakers in our prayer life also. John R. Scott, who's a priest in London, or who was a priest when I read this, he might be dead now, I don't know. But anyway, he spoke and he wrote about peacemakers. And he states some kind of interesting ideas about being a peacemaker. He says, for Christians, the first thing about being a peacemaker is that we have to recover and resolve ourselves to want peace. We have to desire peace. We have to really desire peace. Now, in our world, there's so much talk about war and sophisticated weapon systems and unsafe schools for children where children and teachers are being shot. There's this teen and young adult malaise where they don't know what they want, where they're going. Most of us have some kind of a fear of AI. And most of us, at least my part of you, a lot of us have anger about having to deal with AI on the phones when we call something. So, and there's violence, everything in the world. Most of the movies have violence, TV shows have violence. Violence is portrayed in so many aspects of our culture today. And there's also this widening gap between the very, 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 very extremely rich person and the very poor. So, I don't know if you read about, Mr. Musk becoming a trillionaire.
Yeah.
And the article I read said that meant that he could give $120 to every person on earth.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of money.
A lot of money. So, it's just we need to want peace. With all this news available to us every nanosecond of our lives, is it possible to really think about peace? And Isn't it possible to kind of lose our sense of what it means to be a peaceful person in the world with all the terrible things that are going on around us that affect our personal peace, that affect the peace of communities, that affects the peace of the natural order of things, that affects the peace in the lives of other people, that affects the lives of other people that we don't even know that are being affected by it. So it's easy to become pessimistic and to feel hopeless and helpless and not look forward to the future. Now, Jesus and all his sayings that come down to us also gave us a saying that it doesn't sound exactly hopeful either. He says this, he says, remember, I'm sending you out among wolves as prey for predators. Not a very peaceful thought. But that is our role. That's our destiny as being a follower of Christ. To be sent out among the wolves. Scott goes on to talk about a second aspect of peacemakers. And he says this, that as Christian peacemakers, we have to be more diligent in our prayers. That we do not need to forget to pray or dismiss the power of prayer. We don't want to think of prayer as just being pietistic or irrelevant, because prayer is very, very important to us and to the peace of the world. Those of you who have studied or read about TM, Transcendental Meditation, know that there have been actual scientific studies done where meditators have gone into cities and meditated, prayed for a while. And police records show a decline in crime. Prayer and peace are very important. And as Jesus, the great peacemaker, told us, he specifically commanded us to pray for our enemies. But do we? It's also a good idea to think about what Paul wrote in the first letter of Timothy. Letter of Timothy. He said this. He said, where he laid down for us and said specifically, the first duty of every congregation is the responsibility to pray for their national leaders so that they may lead a quiet and peaceful life. Prayer and peace go together, and it's kind of an interesting passage given our particular point in history, don't you think? Yeah. But not only parish groups, but let each one of us pray for peace in our daily prayer lives. And in the prayers of people every Sunday, we have an opportunity to pray for peace. It's always a peace phrase in the intercessions for the day. And of course, we exchange the peace. The third action of a peacemaker, or a Christian peacemaker, is that we must provide a good example. What it means to be a peacemaker, not only individually, but as a congregation, as a group of people. Is it possible for Christians to maintain a credible witness for peace in the world unless the church itself is seen as a community of peace and peacemaking? And part of peacemaking is charity, love, and reconciliation. If charity begins at home, so does reconciliation. We need to follow the teachings of Jesus when he says, be reconciled with your brothers and your sisters, and then come and offer worship. Be reconciled first. Because reconciliation is such a powerful way to bring peace and to be at peace. We need to forgive our enemies, whether they be foreign or domestic, or our friends or whoever. We need to mend broken relationships. We need to ensure that our homes are havens of love, joy, and peace. And we need to banish from the church any malice, anger, and bitterness. God's purpose for Christians in the church is to create a reconciled society that challenges the values of the secular world. And Jesus also says to us as a congregation, as individuals, he says, by their fruits they shall be known, or by your fruits you shall be known. It's not easy to be a peacemaker, and that brings us back to the gospel sayings and the reminder that we are called to proclaim the good news of what Christ has accomplished in Christ Jesus, fearing not the social consequences and being assured always that God cares for us, and God will always continue to care to us to the end of time. And visible proof. You want visible proof of how God cares for you? Look around you today and see the people that are gathered here today to support you and to pray with you and to be with you during any time that you need them. You want visible proof for today? You want to taste the proof that God gives us? Come to the altar, to the Holy Sacrament. And God, experience God's care for us in those few moments when we gather around the altar and share in the body and blood of Christ. For then, and for that mystical time, we will dwell in Christ, the great peacemaker, and the great peacemaker will dwell in us and all Christians. Okay, you want to be a peacemaker? I'm going to give you some really practical advice today. Okay, really practical. This is something that came to me through Edward Hayes, a mystic. And I share it with you because it's been important to me for several decades now. I have in my hand right now one of the greatest instruments of peace that you have in your home. One of the greatest instruments of peacemaking you have in your home. It is, in a sense, a weapon of mass destruction. Would you like to see what this peacemaking weapon is?
Sure.
There it is. Can you see it? You see what it is? I know it's small.
Nail clippers?
It's a nail clipper. Yeah. It's a nail clipper. Just think about it. In the animal world, claws are weapons, right? And some of you with cats may experience this more often than others. But claws are weapons. They're massive weapons of destruction. And we humans also have claws, but we call them fingernails. Yes, we call them fingernails. So think about making it a ritual, a prayer ritual, every time you trim your fingernails in the future. Because when you're trimming your fingernails, you have the opportunity to remind yourself that you want to be a peacemaker as you trim back your physical weapons, as you trim back your claws. And as you trim back your claws, as you trim back your nails, also trim back your anger in your heart. Trim back your desire for revenge. And resolve to be a peacemaker in your world. Well, speaking of fingernails and claws, I read something else a long time ago, and I practiced this for decades, actually. And I read someplace, or heard someplace, that it's really a good idea to do your trimming of your fingernails outside, so that your little clippings fall to the earth. Or if you trim inside, you collect your clippings and throw them outside, so that they return to the earth. And it's kind of a reminder that you are getting rid of that anger and that revenge feeling and those weapons. You're returning it to the earth. And you're also returning part of yourself to the earth as a reminder that, as we say on Ash Wednesday, remember that you are of the earth, and to the earth you shall return. Amen.
Amen.
Yeah.